Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's awesome, fantastical episode of the Fantasy Fiends podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Collier, and I'm here with my co-host, Andy Peliquin, who I'm sure has some awesome news about his release. And we are honored to have Mirren Hogan with us today, and we're going to be talking about her book, The Daughter of Shadows. And we're also going to be doing our reading from Daughter of Shadows, if I'm correct, right? We're doing the reading of Daughter of Shadows? Yes? Okay, cool. Awesome. So, Mirren, how are you doing?
Good. Good.
Awesome. It's always... Oh, that's a bear.
No.
If you're not watching the video, Mirren has a dog in her... A lap dog. And he's taking up most of the screen. His name is Bear. He's a good boy.
He wants to be on camera. He wants to be the center of attention. Kind of like my daughter.
Yeah? Don't you have like 3 daughters? 2 daughters?
2 daughters, 2 sons.
Oh, perfect. So it's like is it an ongoing war between them?
Essentially.
Really?
I mean, siblings are always, they've sort of got this contentious / competitive relationship, especially during the teen years, young adult years. So there's definitely a competition between them for various things. Like my oldest daughter is the smartest. She's a straight A student, honor roll student. And so the second daughter, she goes the opposite extreme, and she's all social and outgoing and stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That sounds... And Mirren, do you have kids?
I have 2 daughters.
2 daughters?
Yep.
Well, I have no kids that I know of. Could be some running around in Mexico, but who knows? That's a bad joke. I shouldn't say that on air.
That is a really bad joke. Have you ever been to Mexico, Stevie?
I have, actually, multiple times.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and Costa Rica like 3 times, actually.
Really? For one of those weird retreats?
Yeah, it's surfing, actually. We're talking about paddleboarding.
Oh,
I went to Costa Rica 3 times for surfing, yeah. So... And I would surf Australia, which is where Mirren is now, but I'm too scared of sharks.
Yeah. I stay out of their bath as I stay out of mine.
Yeah, that's good. I hear the sharks are pretty bad, though, in Australia, aren't they?
Well, I knew about people get bitten by them.
Not only that, you guys have those terrible jellyfish and reefs.
And the snakes and the spiders and all of the other dangerous creatures.
Yeah.
Don't forget the kangaroos and the koalas.
And the dingoes. Can't forget the dingoes.
The drop bears.
And the Jack Russells.
Is Bear half dingo?
No.
Oh, Bear. Wow, he's like right there. Is he like big or something, or is that just the camera?
Yeah, it's just the camera.
Oh, okay. Well, awesome. So, Mirren, the way I like to start these videos is to talk about something cool that happened to us this past week. And as for me, I don't think I did anything cool, but I did start my newest series, which is the Bizarre Blade series. And just a little hint, there are magical swords in a world covered in prehistoric beasts. That's right. You heard me right. Prehistoric beasts. So it's been super fun, and I've done more research than I've ever done in my university years. When you care about something like that, you put a lot of effort into it. So usually 4,000 words takes me 2 hours to do, and now I'm writing around 4 hours a day because I'm actually crafting each sentence, and because this is like my love project, my passion project. So I'm actually crafting. I'm taking my time, is what I'm trying to say. And it feels good. It feels good. Time just flies by. Oh, I do have a story. I ran up to a girl today to tell her she was pretty, and I scared the crap out of her. She was getting into her car, and I said, "Excuse me," and she's like, "What? What do you want?" And I was like, nothing really. I just wanted to say that you're incredibly cute." And she goes, "Is that it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's it. Is that a problem?" She goes, "No." And I'm like, well, fine. Have a great day. sorry I bothered you. And she left. I was like, God, I mean, she just get this all the time that she's just used to it or something, you know?
Stevie Collier, professional creeper.
Professional pickup artist. Just sometimes it doesn't go over well, you know? At least I try. So that's my cool, not cool story. And Andy, I'm sure, Mirren, I'm like trying to give you time to think of one because
Oh, I
this
have
is.
one.
Oh, cool. You want to go now then?
Oh, hey, yeah, sure.
You fought a
I went.
kangaroo.
I went to a convention called Supernova in Sydney on the weekend, which is like Comic Con, just with a different name.
Oh.
And I met Stephen Amell from Arrow.
Ooh.
I shook his hand. And then we went to the Knocking Point party afterwards at night, and he was doing a Q&A, and a guy had a gift for him, and he'd actually come down off the stage to walk over to this guy because he was in a wheelchair, and he crouched down right next to me.
Ooh.
So I'm easily impressed, apparently. I had to grab the phone out really quickly and take a photo.
Have
That's
you
awesome.
have you not washed your hand?
Well, I have. And I met Carlos Valdez, who played Disco in The Flash, and shook his hand as well. So, yeah, that's my excitement for the year.
That's actually a really cool story.
Who was that last one?
Sorry?
Who was that last one?
Carlos Valdez from The Flash.
Oh, Carlos Valdez. Oh, yeah, he's cool.
Yeah.
I don't know any of these people.
Well, that's because you don't watch the DC TV shows, Stevie.
Oh, I don't watch any TV. Like, going back to girls, I was talking to this one girl, and she asked me what my favorite TV shows were, and I said, actually, I don't watch any TV because I'm always working. In fact, it's an issue, but I always have TV on the background, and it's always in French or Japanese. So even when I'm trying to entertain myself, I'm still like learning something. And that's actually, I talked to my parents about it this week, that I need to start finding time for not working. So
I would say you're missing out. Some of my greatest ideas have come from watching TV. In fact, the idea for The Hunter came from an episode of Criminal Minds, where the bad guy of the week, he hears his father's voice in his head, and he kills to silence this father's voice. And so, he's the villain, and the FBI, they chase him down and all of that. But that's what sparked the idea for the Hunter. He has this voice in his head that drives him to kill, and he kills to silence the voice.
Yeah.
Or, watching episodes of random TV shows, they'll say something, whether it's about whether it's a mental illness, and it just sparks this idea, okay, I can write this into my character. Or like, the ideas come from the most random places at the most random times, but TV has been a major source of inspiration for my story creation.
So you're saying I should watch TV as homework?
I think so.
I'm sorry, Mary.
Andy is inspired by psychopaths. Got it.
Yeah. Oh, he is. He really is, because he is one.
No, I've taken a test, and I'm not a psychopath.
I've taken the same test, actually.
Was that an online test?
Yeah, we took it together. I remember that episode. I'm only half sadistic.
You were 85% not a psychopath.
Yeah. That's awesome.
No, but I will say that watching TV has super helped me. I've found some amazing insights and revelations from different TV shows, because a lot of shows, they're interesting, they're fun, they're fluff, but then they also intersperse these moments of real truth and clarity and insight that help you to connect with the characters. Even shows like Arrow, and The Flash and all of them, they say these things that really get into the core of what it means to be human, or to be a hero, or to be a husband, or a father, or a daughter, or a wife, or whatever. Whatever the characters are, they have these insights into them, and it's really fascinating to be able to translate them into the character. And so you never know what will click. And so now TV watching, for me, it's definitely entertainment, because at the end of the day, I need something to shut my brain down from all of the thinking and the creating and stuff. But I'm always finding new inspirations from TV shows that I watch, and movies too.
Yeah.
Interestingly, one of the questions at one of the panels at Supernova was, what advice would you give to young actors? And Matt Ryan, who plays Constantine, said, you've got to have passion for whatever you're doing. It's got to be the only thing you know how to do, which I'm sure we can all relate to as authors.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen Amell said, if you can't get people interested in you, create your own content. I was like, you are speaking right to me.
That is really good advice, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I never tried to have anybody interested in my novels, such as, literary agents or anything like that. But I was considering trying with this book because I'm so excited about it. But I don't know if I want to. I really, really, really enjoy being an independent author. And what I was going to say is I actually watch a lot of movies in theater. Every week I go to the movie theater probably about once or twice. And I would love to talk about Deadpool 2. I mean, I liked it better than the first one. I liked it better.
I think the first one was better crafted overall.
I laughed. I actually didn't think the first one was as funny as the second one, but I like really crude humor, and I feel like the second one had more crude humor. So it's not easy to it's not hard to impress me when it's very crude. I didn't like the final fight scene in the Deadpool 1. I didn't really care. But Deadpool 2, I really liked the Juggernaut. I thought he was... The only thing is the CGI fight,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like how they made fun of it too. Like, oh, here comes a CGI fight, But Incredibles 2, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that story. I don't know if y'all... I won't spoil it.
Anything for me. I haven't seen it yet.
I won't spoil it. I hope you enjoy it, though, because I enjoyed it. And there's like a short before it that made me tear up. And I was like, I don't want to watch some stupid short. And then I'm like, I wait a minute. Seriously, after the short is over, I waited a minute to wipe one eye. And then I waited 2 minutes to wipe the other eye. Because I was sitting by like some dude with some beard and I didn't want to look like a little girl, He fell asleep and his head almost rested on my shoulder and he started snoring. I didn't want to wake him up. Okay, so oh wait, Andy, what's your... Okay, Andy's got some good news. Andy's got some good news.
So I've got some interesting developments. Being here in Canada, I'm now 3 weeks into my Canadian experience. And for the first time, I did outdoorsy stuff for the first time in a long time. So I went kayaking, which was awesome. I had tons of fun. I felt like one of those the Greek warships, where you're ramming speeds, paddling as fast as I could. It was also awesome. Yeah, exactly. And then I also tried paddleboarding, which I was far less good at because I'm a lot heavier than the average paddleboarder, so it was harder to keep my balance. But it was a really cool experience being in the great outdoors and doing the outdoorsy thing. So, it's part of being a Canadian or being in Canada, doing stuff outdoors. Everybody spends the entire summer camping, hiking at lakes, fishing, stuff like that. So I'm going to try a bunch of things: skiing, snowboarding, hunting for the first time in my life.
Hunting, really? I didn't take you as someone who would want to try hunting.
My thing is I will try everything once. So I'll go hunting once. I'll probably get bored after an hour or two of sitting and waiting. So I probably won't do it more than once or twice.
You just want to put it in a book, don't you?
What's that? You
want to put it in a book.
Yeah, no, I figured I'd have a really hard time hunting because every few minutes I'd be like clicking my pen to write down some new idea and then clicking it to and then doing it again and moving. And so I'd never sit still long enough for whatever animal we're hunting to. But, it's something I want to try
really
just to get a feel for it, whether it's my brother-in-law does bow hunting and then rifle and shotgun hunting. Ooh. So I want to try it all. Just to say I've tried it. Maybe I'll enjoy it, maybe I won't, but it's an experience and I'm all about experiences.
Bow hunting is so hard, I hear.
Yeah, you have to be really accurate.
I mean, and I just don't think I could do it because I know the animal doesn't die instantly. And that hurts me.
Yeah.
I'm also a big animal wuss. So obviously I have the new rescued cat. So I had 2 questions for you real quick, Andy. One, did you fall off your paddleboard?
I did not. I managed to stay on and not fall off.
Nice. So I'm a little disappointed in Andy for all you viewers and listeners out there because he did not know that I surfed. And it's like, I'm surprised I never talked about surfing before, but I've been surfing since I was 17. And we actually have a surf machine in Austin. It's the first one in North America. So it creates the perfect wave every 20 seconds. And actually for my birthday, which is July 2nd, I'm asking for a gift card to go have to meet with my trainer there who's training me. And What was the other thing? I think we don't have time for it anyway. We probably need to get into our daily discussion or
Well, I've got one
okay.
more little thing is I signed up for the self-published fantasy blog off this year, which is run by Mark Lawrence. He hosts a competition of self-published fantasy novels, and he this year there were 300 entrants,
Whoa.
including myself. Let's see, Joshua Robertson signed up, JC Kang, a bunch of awesome self-published and independent fantasy authors. We all signed up, and so it's 300 books divided into 10 reviewers, or blogs that review the books, and basically they narrow it down um, at the end of the year, which is going to be early 2019, and declare the winner, the best indie book, according to these reviewers, obviously. So this is the first year that I've had anything to enter into the self-published fantasy blog off, so I'm very excited to see how well Darkblade Assassin does. We'll see what happens.
Am I too late?
Yeah, it filled up literally within 48 hours. I was
What?
before the show, I was like, oh, I totally forgot to tell you.
Wow. Wow, Andy. No, it's cool. I'd be a little nervous too. Like, I don't like, that kind of competition, whose is better than whose, I'm more of a this was different, kind of guy.
Yeah, it's definitely stiff competition. 100 books, there can only be one winner. So
only one. One to rule them all.
If I even make it to the final 10 or something, I'll be happy.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. Mirren, you're gonna enjoy this one. So I tried Tinder for the first time in Texas, Austin, Texas, and I was shocked how many women their main picture was like them with a dead deer. And I was like, wow, like just holding up this bloody mess of a thing, and I'm just like, okay. Anyway, I'm off Tinder now. I didn't like it. It was not my cup of tea, as Andy would say. But yeah, I just thought that was funny, and it's super unattractive. For all you ladies out there, it's unattractive to pose with a bloody dead deer and
dead anything.
Yeah, dead anything, right? That, and I saw a few like eating this big juicy burger. I'm just like, oh god, oh, I just want to see your face. Anyway, okay, that's my tangent for today. I'll shut up. All right, Andy, do we want to talk about the discussion today?
Yes, Sensei Stevie, or whatever that accent was.
We were chatty today. Mirren, you're lucky. That was some good back and forth right there between us three. But ooh, Longhorns. Go Longhorns. Do you know who the Longhorns are, Mirren? It's the University of Austin. That's like their thing, the Longhorns.
Oh, they invented that, did they? And everyone else copied them?
Yeah, everybody. Wait, is it? See, the thumb is actually covering the first two fingers. But where I was born, we're Texas A&M. It's agriculture, and where I went to college were the Pirates. So you do like this little weird retarded finger thing, and I never got it right because I couldn't stop wiggling mine.
But she was doing the heavy metal thing, right?
Oh yeah, heavy metal, rock on. Yeah. Andy, I'm super excited about today's topic.
All right. So one thing that we were talking about watching TV shows, and like I said, a lot of really interesting ideas have come from that. And one of them came from the show Westworld. For those of you who haven't seen Westworld, it's about this massive theme park, sort of Western vibe theme park, where all of the people inside of it are androids or synthetic humans. And so the real humans, can come to the park and they can do whatever they want. They can play the white hat good guys, where they rescue a hero, they play the hero, or they rescue a damsel in distress, or they fight off bandits. They can play black hats, where they are the bandits, or they're the criminals or train robbers or whatever. And so it's basically this massive theme park. And in the first or second episode, the guy who created the robots is talking about the process that they went through to make them as realistic. They were saying, even after we got all of the movements and the body structures and everything perfect, people still didn't find it authentic. And then we added something called reveries. Reveries are hints of memory, or hints of personality, or verbal tics, or verbal cues, or different things, little flaws, as it were, that made the characters seem real. Because everybody has their flaws. My wife pointed out to me that when I talk, I rub my nose a lot. It's just a nervous tick that I have. And so that's one thing that makes me human. If I didn't have any nervous ticks, any nothing, I would be too perfect, and then I wouldn't be human. So it was such an interesting revelation that those little details, one small thing, is enough to make a character seem real. And because it's something that we recognize through our interactions with everybody we meet has some flaw, has some tick, has something weird about them, and that's what makes us human. And I found that such an interesting concept, which is why I was so happy to talk about it today.
We actually have talked about this before, and it's actually a big reason why I implemented a lot of this into my story, the one I'm writing now. I mean, they're not androids or anything, but I made some of my characters have ticks that normal people have. I did it in the last novel I wrote, where one of my characters was always biting on his fingers. And to me, it just sparks a little life into the prose. It sparks a little bit of life into the prose. I feel like a cooking show person. Mirren, what do you think? Have you watched Westworld? Because I have not.
No, I haven't. But the first thing that I was thinking of in terms of shows and books with flaws was Game of Thrones. Because I don't think there's a person in there that doesn't have a massive flaw.
You're so right. That show should be called Game of Flaws, for real. Like, I apologize for that lame joke, ladies and gentlemen. But Andy, have you read Chris Fox's new book, the one about outlining?
I haven't.
I've already listened to it like 3 times, and he talks a lot about the flaws in Game of Thrones, like the characters. You love to hate them. You love to hate them. And I love that. I wanted to create an antagonist that we love to hate, you know? So today we're talking about flaws. It's all about flaws. The only one here who doesn't have flaws is probably Mirren. I'm actually really jealous, Mirren. Like, you're petting that dog, and I'm such a dog. I wish my dog was small enough to be in my lap.
Is that a flaw or a strength, Stevie?
Of me wanting a dog on my lap?
You wanting to have a dog in your lap while we're talking. See, this is one of those little tiny details, these reveries that make you human.
Ooh, Andy.
See, I would never want a dog in my lap while I was on camera because I'm very focused, right? But the fact that you want one is your little tick, as it were. It's the thing that makes you human.
That explains our friendship and our teamwork. It's like Stevie's got the crazy dog on his lap, and Andy's like focused. He's like, Stevie, come on, we gotta focus.
Keeping being stressed out while I'm talking to you, and also this is the warmest part of me is where the dog is lying. So.
Oh yeah. For all of you who don't know, like I didn't know, it's actually winter in Australia when it's summer in the north. I had no idea. And we're just talking about my terrible, terrible geographical skills.
Yeah, well, there's your flaw.
Yeah. Before we go on a little bit further, Mirren, would you explain the story that we're talking about today, and maybe we can kind of discuss some flaws in the characters in your book?
My flaw might be having a hard time explaining anything.
That's with all of us in our books, I think.
Yeah, that's true. Well, basically, there's 2 kinds of people in the world that it's set in Chadana. And they're called the Karef and the Katoi. And the Karef are like shapeshifters, but instead of being able to change their whole form, they can just shift wings out. So basically, they just look like normal people otherwise. But the Katoi decided about 300 years ago that they were going to exterminate all of the rest of them.
Exterminate.
But luckily they can actually hide, and then unless they're given this stuff called elixir, which makes their wings pop out. But generally speaking, you wouldn't know if your neighbors were one, which is obviously an analogy for religion and that kind of thing. Because you wouldn't have known a Jew in World War II if they hadn't said so, or etc. So they've been living in the shadows for 300 years, and now it's time to come out, bitches.
Bitches. Oh, we're gonna get along, Mirren. We're gonna get along. I love it. So
about the flaws of these characters, Mirren, how you made them real through their flaws.
Well, the main character, Ataran, is 17 to start with, so she's a bit of a classic 17-year-old. Bit of a narcissist, bit of a, I'm just going to go out there and I don't really care what my parents say, even though, like, it might get them killed.
Mm-hmm. Wow, it's a pretty big flaw.
Yeah. Another one of the main characters, his parents were murdered when he was a child, and he's been pretty much vengeful ever since. So he's very driven and very arrogant. And basically, I'm going to step on you all to get my way.
Mm-hmm.
Bitches.
That's great. Did you take these flaws from tvtropes.com, or did they just come naturally through you?
Thinking back to when I wrote it in 2004.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Forgot about that.
Was there even a tvtropes.com back in 2000?
I don't think so. I doubt it. So that probably answers our question right there.
Yeah, I'm not writer back then, so I would have just made it up as I went along and just kind of got put some more depth in the last couple of years with the last few reruns through and passes through, I should say.
I have a question for both of you guys, Mirren, Andy. Is there a flaw you prefer to write about? Do you find yourself going to one flaw most of the time, but putting a different twist on it all the time? Or is it a different flaw every single time?
I like snarky characters.
Snarky.
We'll always have a snarky character who's...
Well, you got Andy right here. Just watch him a little bit longer and you'll find some more flaws.
All the one-liners and all the,
Yeah. The one that I think I typically write a lot is sort of an impetuousness, like a character who rushes into things, or he or she is very driven, but then that drive often gets them in trouble, so they have to figure their way out of the trouble that they created. And one of the the learning processes, or one of the character development arcs, is usually them learning to think a bit more about their things before they rush into it.
Could you say that one more time? You didn't break up, but I think my headphones kind of screwed up.
All right, just characters, they think something, they make a decision, and they act without a whole lot of forethought. And then they find themselves in hot water, so they've got to figure a way out of it. The character development arc is often, it's a small one, but it's them thinking a bit more before they take action and being a bit more cautious.
So did you write this because you do that?
Correct.
Really? I was joking. For real?
No, the thing is, I come to conclusions very quickly. My wife and I have had many discussions about my decision-making process. I come to conclusions very quickly, and I like to think that they're based on solid information and thought. But then more often than not, well, not more often than not, but sometimes they're not the right decision, and so then I have to figure out a way to fix them. So sort of, it's like, all right, my wife wants me to think more, so I make my characters think more, at least a little bit.
That is funny. I think I asked this question because I realized that in my first series I kept going to the same flaw, which was arrogance and ignorance and naivety. God dang it! I sound like a 4-year-old on today's podcast. No, I didn't know Australia. There's a winter in Australia. I thought it was hot all the time.
Just the all the time.
Yeah. So in this book that I'm writing now, I made it a actually inspired by Andy Peliquin and Nicholas Eames. I am trying to write so many different characters with so many different flaws and so many plans of growth. So they're all going to grow in different areas, and they're going to try and grow together. And if they grow apart, they grow apart. And I can't explain how passionate I am about this project. I know I can't shut up about it, but I feel bad for my family because every time I come home, they pause the TV because I know I'm going to talk to them for an hour about what I wrote that day. So, and I don't think it's bad if I tell you all the flaw I'm writing about now, and that is cowardice. He's a coward, but his heart is so powerful that it actually kind of takes over his legs and his arms, and he does stuff instinctually. He's so in tune with his instincts that or his subconscious, you know, he doesn't want to be the hero. He's afraid to, but he still acts on it. And I think that's a unique thing I've built for this character, but he's always very, very afraid, even though what he wants in this story is to be a hero, but he's too afraid to be it. And another big flaw, he looks up to these heroes like they're gods when they're really people. He thinks they're immortal, but they're not. And we learned that very quickly in the Bizarre Blade series, that no one's immortal in a world filled with dinosaurs. So I'll shut up now. Everybody, you guys knew I was super excited to talk about flaws. Now let's talk about how important flaws are to a story. Can you write a story without flaws in your characters? What do you think?
No. Short answer.
Yeah.
Perfectly boring, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. I totally agree with that.
I mean, where's the character growth if they're perfect to start with? I think I'd want to kill them off on the first couple of pages.
If they come out too perfect, yeah.
It's interesting how the flaws will often take shape through the story.
Yes.
As you're writing it, not consciously, or let's say for me as a writer, I've experienced in the last year or so, or 2 years, that the characters take shape as I write them. So I don't have to plan for the flaws because the flaws sort of naturally come out on their own. And it's sort of an interesting journey for me to take with the characters, because now that I'm sort of thrown into the deep end of seeing this flaw that I've written, I have to figure out ways to showcase it more, but then also to help them progress through it. And it's really helped me to be more self-evaluating of myself and my flaws, but then, the things about the people around me, mainly, my wife and kids, because I spend all my time around them, but then, in-laws, family, friends, and all of that. Seeing these flaws in the characters that I write helped me to understand, all right, so the guy who's just yelled at me for something that was ridiculous, that's his flaw, and he may be at at chapter 2 in his character development arc, and eventually he'll get over it. Or maybe, the person that I knew a year ago who was a total asshole to me is now at chapter 40 in his character development arc, and he's so much nicer because he's gone through all this growth. And so it's really interesting to apply that concept, so to speak, to real life.
Yeah, we'll put you in a book and kill you off. Or you may get character. Actually, the last character I put in a book because it was actually a boy that annoyed one of my children, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna name a character after him and maybe kill him off, and he ended up being the most awesome character that ended up kind of a hero anyway. So I thought, well, that didn't work. But okay.
Yeah, one of my favorite characters of all time was one that I wrote as a thank you to someone who had been instrumental in helping me with the Queen of Thieves series. So I wrote her a character. She's this crazy cat lady, but instead of a cat, she has this monkey looking thing, and it's my favorite character of the whole series, aside from the main character, obviously. But yeah, I don't think I've ever written in someone to kill them off like out of spite like that.
Yeah, that was about the one time.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
We have a slight resemblance to a certain American president.
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
You know what's so weird? I'm the only one who lives in America. I'm the only one who is living under President Trump. I just now realized. I always think Andy's in America. I don't know why. Maybe because I thought he was from California. Actually, I think your Facebook profile still says you're from Baja.
Oh, well, I better go and change that quickly.
Yeah. Come on now. One thing I forgot to mention is I don't think a character can be perfect. I think a character that's too perfect is actually a flaw. Meaning they could be arrogant, they could be prideful, they could be overly courageous. So it's like a I want to say conundrum. It's a paradox to say that someone's too perfect, which could actually become a flaw, in my opinion. So you could actually write the perfect character, but then that's their flaw. They're too perfect, and then something bad could happen, and they realize, oh, I'm actually an arrogant jerk. The character that comes to mind when I think this is who's that character who was sleeping with his sister on Game of Thrones?
Lannister.
That's who I'm thinking about. he's like the perfect guy, but he's like the worst guy ever.
Yeah, but that's actually a really interesting flaw, is striving for perfection. Like someone who is so dedicated to perfection. You know, it's sort of like the Catholic priests or Catholics, you know, 500, 600, 700 years ago. The flagellation. That is a huge thing that these people would do in their effort to be perfect. They would whip themselves with the goal of cleansing their bodies of sin to be perfect. Look at that. That is ridiculous to self harm for this goal of perfection, and yet it's something that was so commonly accepted until recently. There's still this spiritual or mental or emotional self-flagellation that a lot of Catholics, I say this is an example specifically because of Catholics, I'm sure many other people have it, but Catholics often live with this Catholic guilt. It's a whole thing where there's this demand or this desire to be perfect, which is why they have to go to confession so they can get these sins off of their chest and they can be good again or perfect again. That's a huge character, not a flaw, but it's a character flaw, so to speak, because you have these people who are willing to hurt themselves or to hurt others or to do terrible things in the name of perfection.
Parenthood's the same. Not wanting to hurt ourselves, but always, you know, I said the wrong thing to my child, or I got angry because I was tired, and then you beat yourself up about it because, you know, you just did what you did. And
yeah, exactly.
Know, if I hover, I'm a bad parent. If I don't hover, I'm a bad parent. If I
or like as an author, I'm sure Steve, you've told me in the last 6 months or so that you feel like you're not as writing as good as you could, or
yeah,
right? But
definitely
you feel that because you want to be perfect. You want to have the story everybody loves that sells 1 million copies. That is, oh my God, this book is the best. You want to be, you know, the Kings of the Wild, the Lives of Locke Lamora, the Sherlock Holmes. You want to be the best. You want to be perfect. And the truth is that you're never going to be perfect as an author, as a parent, as a person. It's just like, so that is a character flaw that literally everybody in the world has to a certain extent in any number of things.
Not to be mushy or anything, but it was a blessing meeting you, Andy, because I instantly became partners with someone who was an incredible author, way above my level. And it's kind of like a vacuum where when you're with somebody like that, you strive for greatness. I always say you're the average of your 5 best friends. And so, Andy, I consider you one of my best friends. So, and I read I read your stuff and I'm like, I need to pick up my game. So I know it's not flaw based, but I was just saying, like, that to me was a big reason why I became, like, my writing has grown. And it's really cool. I didn't do a study, but I had somebody, like, I got fan mail from somebody, and then they finished the 3rd book in the series, and they're like, I thought your first book was good, but your 3rd book is way better. And it's so gratifying to see growth there. I'll be quiet about that now because it has nothing to do with flaws, because my writing is never flawed.
No, but it's very true. Like until I met you, I didn't know where I was going wrong with my business and marketing side of things. And then we've had all of these conversations throughout the last year or more. And then I've learned so much about the business side of things, just like you say, you've learned so much about the craft side of things. And now I've taken steps to correct these flaws. And so having these people in your life, having these characters that you read or you see on TV to showcase these flaws for you, helps you to get in better touch with your own humanity. You know, like you identify a lot with the characters that you watch on TV or that you read in a book, and that's what makes you love them so much. And then you say, okay, now this character is going through this emotional journey or this spiritual journey or this physical journey, and you identify with that, and then you see, okay, he dealt with his flaws or she dealt with her problems in this way. And it sort of gives you the inspiration to deal with your own or to confront your own, or be willing to even just face your own, which can be really terrifying.
That could arguably be a reason why we read fantasy, you know, to not only escape, but actually to learn. And I'm not afraid to say we actually learn stuff from fiction. So, Mirren, not to be creepy, but how old are your daughters?
16, and the oldest one is 18 in a week or 2.
Okay. The reason why I ask is, are they single? No. Joking, completely joking. have you watched the movie Tangle? They're probably too old, but it's a Disney movie about Rapunzel, I think.
Yeah, I've got it on DVD somewhere around.
Oh, okay. Well, we were talking about, characters that we any what's the word that we connect with.
Yeah.
And well, Flynn Rider in that movie, we were watching it in the theater. I think we were the only adults in there. And I was like, man, why does this character seem so familiar? And I look over and my brother and his girlfriend are like looking at me like, what are y'all looking at me for? And I'm like, that's you. That's you. He actually looks like you too. And I'm like, I am not that arrogant. And like, you are. You think you're handsome. You think you're good. You think all the ladies love you. I'm like, I don't think that. I do not think that. That's retarded. And then last week I was in Express and one of the ladies put her hand over her mouth and then rushed back and came back. And then the other one was like, he does. And they're like, you look just like Flynn Rider. And I'm like, oh my God, Flynn Rider. And then like, do the face, the smirk,
Yeah.
yeah. It's funny. That's what it reminded me of when you said
that. Your next outfit for the Renaissance Fair, Stevie. Instead of a gladiator.
It should. That would be so cool. It'd be so cool.
Maybe you should do Disney for copywriting your face or something.
I should. Everybody sues everybody these days. Flynn Rider, Flynn. Which is funny because my new protagonist's name is Finn. So Mirren, is there anything else you want to touch on with flaws? I feel like I've held the mic for too long and I feel bad.
To be fair, that's the way every one of these podcasts go. So
Andy's in my relationship is love-hate. He's always getting on to me.
No, flaws are good.
Flaws are definitely good, yes. Do you guys watch Rick and Morty?
Hell, yes.
No, but I'm asking her if Australia has Rick and Morty.
Oh.
Judging by the people walking around Supernova on the weekend with Pickle Rick on their jumpers and things, I would say yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We've got Rick and Morty merchandise in shops and things, but I haven't seen it. So.
I went to open a phone line for my new house, and the guy who I was dealing with, behind the desk, he had his ringtone was Pickle Rick. I'm Pickle
Awesome.
Rick!
I'm Pickle Rick!
That's awesome. And he's like, you have no idea how few people recognize that here.
What? For real?
I don't know what it means, but okay.
Kamloops is like sort of a small town vibe, so definitely doesn't get a lot of that sort of nerd content here.
Mirren, you have homework. Go watch Rick and Morty. I hope you're not easily offended. Oh, that's what I wanted to ask you. Did you dress up for this con?
No, I didn't.
Oh, what?
We only had so much room in suitcases and things, so I just had to ordinary boring clothes. And
I got you. Would it be stupid if I wore my gladiator costume to a con?
No.
No, it wouldn't. I'd actually be accepted.
It would be expected.
Really? A gladiator, though? It's not like Trekkie or Star Warsy. It's not.
Matter. There are so many fandoms and so many non-fandom costumes that you can dress up whatever the hell you want and you will fit in. That's the whole point of this Comic-Con environment, is that all of these marginal people who were marginalized for so long for their fandoms or their passions or their interests in sci-fi, fantasy, comic books, whatever it is, that's their home.
You do realize I'm 75% naked in that costume.
Just please don't wear a G-string. There are children there.
Oh, yeah.
The weekend, it was just a bit too much.
I actually wear a black Speedo that covers half my legs. I just could not do because a lot of guys at the Ren Fairs, they have leather Speedos, meaning they only wear the girdle, and the girdle has a leather piece that covers their groin. And like, you just look at the right angle and you'll see some skin. It's like crazy.
No, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm just like,
I don't have a problem with that, but there were children there.
And
this woman from the front, I could see where she'd been waxed.
Oh no!
Like, little kids really don't quite need to know that yet.
Yeah, that is funny. So how about we get to the reading, guys?
Definitely.
Let's see. Oh, okay. So Mirren, the way we do this, I don't know if you've watched one of our podcasts before, but we have the author be like the director, the casting agent. You are going to tell us who you want to play certain parts, and it is up to you who plays the narrator, who is going to say, you know, the he said, she said, and all the description. So it's all up to you. Andy plays a really good girl, and I play a very, very good husky male.
I'm just trying to think who else is in the scene because I don't have it in front of me. I'm on my iPad.
Oh, if you can't read it, I could either Andy or I could narrate.
You narrate, CV, and all the voices.
You want to do that, Mirren? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, you have at it.
Okay. Andy, do we need to go ahead?
Do these characters have any accents, Mirren?
They're all Australian.
Really.
Not really?
Not really, no.
All right. Well, then I'll just do whatever I want.
Yeah,
Like
right.
My Crimson series, I'm going African.
Real quick, do you want to give us a quick backstory to the scene for the listeners and viewers?
Yeah, okay. So the temple has found out that Ataran is Kareth and is sending her up to the capital to the king who wants to meet one. And she was chained inside a little cottage, and some townsfolk, being provincial townsfolk, decided it would be a good idea to throw a torch through the window and burn her.
Oh.
And Kale is to rescue her.
Very nice. Okay. And real quick, for all those listeners and viewers, please hit that subscribe button. Please smash that like button. That helps us out tremendously. Please enjoy the show. All right, Andy, you ready?
Hit it.
All right, already I see something. Is it Kyle or Kale?
Kale.
Kale, okay. The air in the village gave Kale pause, but it was too late in the day to move on to the next town. So he ordered his men to stop and search for a place to rest for the night. Then he had seen a sister. With no evidence of a temple in the vicinity. He knew, without having to ask, that the Kareth girl was here.
Excuse me, sister.
He towered over the woman, content to let his height intimidate her. He was politeness itself, of course, in the presence of a woman of the goddess, but he wanted her complete cooperation, whatever it took to achieve it.
Yes.
The sister turned and her eyes widened.
Commander.
The insignia on his chest marked his rank and designation as head of the king's personal guard.
Can I help you? I believe so, sister. Would you have a young girl in your company?
The sister's eyes narrowed and she gestured around herself.
As you can see, Commander, I do not.
She replied.
Perhaps there is a brothel in the next town?
She gave him a sarcastic smile and made to move away. Furious but maintaining an outward facade of calm, Kale grabbed her arm hard enough to hold her there, but gentle enough that he wouldn't hurt her yet.
My apologies, sister. It seems I didn't explain properly. I meant to ask, are you with the entourage accompanying the Kareth to Tassoon?
Trying to pull back her arm, the sister's eyes blazed, but she stood her ground, having no choice.
Yes, I am. The abomination is in the house at the end of the road there.
She pointed, then winced as Kale squeezed his fingers around her arm in anger. Kale took a deep breath to prevent himself from doing something he'd regret. He released his sister's arm and stepped back, bowing.
I apologize again, sister. On the king's orders, my men and I are to accompany the Kareth to Tassoon. I regret that I caused you concern with my haste and thoughtlessness. I am anxious to meet her. Rest assured that I will pray to the goddess for her forgiveness for any offense I have caused you.
The sister sniffed and rubbed her arm.
Be sure that you do, and pray for your own soul. It's damned the minute you're in the company of that girl. Good evening, Commander. Good evening, sister.
At times, Kale regretted serving in the king's personal guard, for he'd have liked to send the sister to the goddess then and there to examine the state of her own soul. However, killing his sister under such conditions would mean breaking his oath, and that wouldn't do. At least, not yet.
Mother would be ashamed of me,
he thought. 1,000 cycles of trying to raise their children to pacifist meant that Kareth were passive by nature. Kale was not. Far from it, in fact. He liked to fight. He just wished he knew how many others weren't passive as well. Someday they'd have to find out, maybe the hard way. He started down the road, passing small homes falling into disrepair, some in a worse state than others. The village seemed to have lost its self-respect when it had lost the source of its income. He smelled smoke but assumed it was from cooking fires until he turned a bend. His eyes widened and he hurried forward, feeling his temper rising again. A rabble had gathered outside a house, yelling and waving torches in the air.
Freak!
He heard one yell. He turned and cupped his hands around his mouth.
Home guard, form up immediately!
He bellowed. After several heartbeats, his men came running, knives, halberds, and swords already drawn. He gestured for them to follow and led them toward the throng just as a woman threw a torch through the back window of the house. Seeing 20 well-armed, black-coated men running toward them, the crowd gave way, scattering in all directions and disappearing into the lengthening shadows.
Look around the back. We need to find her now,
Kale ordered. With no hesitation, the men circled the house, looking for signs of where a Taran might be. Kale trotted in through the front door, although he suspected she might be in that very back room. Hearing the end of an argument between a brother and a sister confirmed his fear.
What are you doing?
He yelled at them through the darkness and thickening smoke as it poured out from under the door.
You're going to leave her to die?
Adept gave Kale a withering look, not intimidated in the slightest.
Not that it's any of your business, whoever you are. I was sent by the king. Fine, you get her out then, if you think he'd rather watch her burn later than letting her burn now.
Kale struck the acolyte with his closest fist, slamming it right into the man's jaw and sending him reeling.
The king ordered her brought to him, not roasted alive.
He snapped, pushing past the acolyte and turning the doorknob. It was locked. Kale was about to aim a kick at the door when he felt a hand on his shoulder. It was a short, round sister. Her hand held open and 2 keys joined by a ring rested on her palm.
The goddess bless you, dear. Please hurry.
Samus implored him. She smiled wanly, then turned and fled, coughing, from the house. Not wasting another moment, Kale tried the first key, but it didn't fit in the hole.
Of course not. Couldn't get the right key the first time, could I?
He muttered under his breath. He turned the second key and opened the lock. Smoke poured out of the room and down the corridor, stinging his eyes. Ignoring the discomfort, he ran into the room, making sure he had what he hoped was the right key for the chain's lock. He saw the girl on the bed, struggling, looking as if she didn't have much energy left with which to fight. Wasting no time, he slipped the key into the lock and turned, feeling it click open and wrench the chains aside. Putting an arm under the girl's neck and the other under her knees, he swept her up and carried her out the door, narrowly missing hitting the doorframe with her booted feet. He carried her outside and lowered her onto the grass while she coughed.
Watch her,
He ordered 2 of his men. One lifted her head to help her breathe, and another placed a blanket over her, though the goddess only knew where he'd got it. Satisfied she was cared for, Kale strode across the grass toward the acolyte who happened to be rubbing a swelling jaw and sitting with 2 brothers and 3 sisters.
So this is how you obey the king's order, is it?
Kale snarled.
By letting an innocent young woman die, just because you're afraid of what she is? We have reason.
Adept replied, looking wary, watching in case Kale took another swing at him.
What right do you have to strike a brother in the service of the goddess? Please.
Samus rose to her feet and took one of Kale's hands in both of hers.
Is Ataran all right?
Kale shrugged and then nodded.
She's alive, thanks to you. And to you as well.
Samus flushed. Her face was lit up in firelight as the roof of the house burst into flames.
Oh goodness, I'm sorry I didn't save her myself.
Adept snorted.
It's not worth risking your life to save that abomination. Only a fool would do such a thing.
He gave Kale a direct look, his message clear.
Do you wish to meet the goddess so soon?
Kale asked, his tone polite. His blood had cooled enough that he wouldn't waste his fist on the brother again. At least, not tonight. Adept paled.
You wouldn't dare. I'd dare, but I wouldn't bother.
Kale replied.
Good night, sister. Sisters. Brothers.
He nodded to Samus, then the other senior novices and acolytes in turn.
Good night,
Samus said softly. Kale nodded before he turned and walked away, just in time to see a Taran throw up all over the grass.
Let's move her somewhere safe.
He said. He mopped the Tarn's mouth with a handkerchief, then let Garich, one of his younger, more trusted men, carry her to the house down the street. That was awesome.
Great scene.
It usually takes me a while to get into a scene, but this was pretty quick. I got a good taste of who Kale was. And
he's a bit of an asshole, but a bit of a hero too.
Yeah, I'm seeing that. I like it a lot. In fact, it reminds me of how Andy would write a character. So
actually, I've read enough of his to have picked a bit that I thought might appeal.
I loved that line. You wouldn't dare, I would dare, but I wouldn't bother.
I have it highlighted. Line. I have it highlighted. I was gonna bring it up. That was such good dialogue right there.
I apologize in advance if it ends up in one of my books in the future.
Yes, please.
It's imprinted on my mind.
Ooh, it's so good.
You have in there.
I really liked that piece of dialogue. That was it's so weird, Andy, that you brought that up. You never really bring up a piece of the document. It's funny that we both, like, I highlighted that piece. It was good. The dialogue throughout the whole story was good. It was really good, actually. Yeah, I bring this up because one of my worst, I want to say attributes, you know what I mean? Dialogue was my worst part of my writing, in my opinion. Nobody ever told me it was bad, but it's something I really worked on. And so I'm always paying attention to it. So I really enjoyed yours.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we have talked about flaws today. We've gotten a lot of cool stuff out. We spent 15 minutes talking about our lives and stuff like that. I want to call this episode extremely successful. I've had a blast talking to both you, Mirren, and Andy. It's been refreshing. It's been refreshing. And thank you for coming on Wednesday, not Thursday, by the way.
Oh, good.
So Andy, do we have anything else to talk about before we sign off?
That is it. Next week, we've got the awesome Tony Cox coming on. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but as usual, it's going to be awesome.
Speaking of roosters, you didn't get the joke? You didn't get the joke, Andy?
Oh, no, that's such terribly, terribly poor pun that I did not.
I'm full of it. All right, Mirren, thank you so much for being on the air with us. Can you please tell us where people can find you?
Sorry?
Or where can people find you?
In
Australia.
They can find me under my blanket at the moment.
Yeah.
So my book's available on Amazon, Nook, Kobo.
There's Bear. Wow, he loves you.
And iBooks.
Nice. Oh, wow, you're wide. I see that now. How's that going?
Yeah, slowly.
Yeah, it's definitely the safer option.
Yes.
Because
away from Kindle Unlimited anyway, so I thought, why let Amazon have that power that they have when they have people in KU? So I thought I might as well just go wide. And yeah, I had a sale today from somewhere through D2D, so
that's awesome. Very cool. Very cool. I don't know if Andy noticed this, but we got like screwed on last month's royalties. Like, it was so low. Like, yeah, did you notice that?
I didn't.
Yeah, so like if you made $20 a day, it brought it down to like $17, $16. I mean, that's a pretty big jump or descent. Yeah, it's a pretty big descent. And I was a little disappointed, but I'm not gonna like be upset because I'm still writing stories for a living. So, you know, I'm always gonna stay positive. I just wish it was a little bit better. And I could go on. I feel like anyway, I'm gonna shut up. Mirren, thank you so much for being on the air with us. Listeners, viewers, if you want to read more about what we read about today, if I could just speak English, that'd be great. Her book is Daughter of Shadows by Mirren Hogan, and it is the Shadownar cycle. Is that right? Series?
Yep.
Yeah, awesome. And you can find it everywhere. So she's actually our first author that's everywhere. So if you've got a Nook or if you're doing Google Play, you can find her anywhere. And I'm sure you're going to really enjoy it. Mirren, thanks again. Andy, you look sexy as hell today. And that's it. And we're going to sign off from Texas, Australia, and Canada, the triangle.
Bye, bitches.
Bye, bitches. Awesome. Good night, everyone.
Good night.